Hi everyone, Miranda DeRusso here, Executive Director with Epicure, and I'm going to share with you, I'm going to try to keep it short, but I'm going to share with you my story. So I think it's fun, personally, I think it's fun to hear how others started out. And then I'm going to share my story, how I became leader, how I coasted at leader for a long time, and then how my business propelled. So hang in there. All right, so I've been with Epicure now for 9.5 years. I started in 2012. I have 3 kids now. I had 2 kids at the time. My daughters are less than a year apart. They were 6 months and 18 months old when I joined. So for me, I joined as a hobby because I needed something else to focus on other than bottles and diapers and I just wanted something for me. So that's why I started Epicure. But it kind of I live in a really small town, Hornpain, Ontario. We're far north. We've got 900 people here. And I found that Epicure was becoming kind of a source of entertainment in town. I was having people over for launch parties, for cooking classes. I think we called them tasting parties back then. And sales came easy because I was just putting myself out there that way and people were tasting the food. But I had not considered growing my team. That was not for me. Like I said, I live in a very small town, and why would I grow my team here in such a small town? People will take sales away from me. That was my mindset. So I just kind of stuck to what I was doing for a while. And my upline, Tara Larson, called me. She's like, Horn, what? Where are you from? She's like, how are you doing this with all these amazing sales? She's like, how about growing your team? Like, have you thought about that? And I told her no. And I think she knew. Tara, if you're watching, I think you knew you needed to get me to conference, because that was Tara's thing for me was, okay, she said, you need to go to conference. And I said, well, I had all the excuses. We all start like that, right? I have no one to watch my kids. My husband's a railroader. He's gone all the time. And she's like, you're going to find someone. You're going to find someone for your kids. You've got to come to conference. So I did it. I threw the excuses away and I went to conference, and that propelled me. Like, I poured myself into those sessions. I went by myself, by the way, didn't know anyone. I just went and I poured myself into those sessions, and that propelled me it got me excited to grow my team. So I grew my team and I got to leadership like within a month, I think, after conference. It was nuts. But that was kind of it for me for a while. Like, I went back to work as a full-time school secretary, and I did that for I maintained leadership and worked my full-time job, and I kind of coasted along, right? And then about 3 years after that, I was pregnant again, and I had my baby boy, Beckett. And yeah, I loved every single second of that maternity leave. I loved every minute of being home. I was super sad when Beckett hit that monthly milestone, like he got older. I didn't want him to get older because that meant I would have to go back to work. And once again, I went to another conference. And when I was there, it was Candice Trupeau who was on stage, and she was talking about taking a leap of faith and that sort of thing. And like, when you go to conference, there's these certain sessions that just get you. There'll always be one that will get you in the feels. And I started crying, and I kind of, my team remembers this. They still poke fun of me. But I ran out of the room and I ran to the window where I had good reception, and I called my husband. And keep in mind, school secretary, it was the end of August, and I had to go back to work in 2 weeks. And I called Derek and I said, I'm going to quit. I'm quitting my job. He's like, you're quitting? We just bought a car. Like, we just bought an SUV for our kids. Are you quitting? Are you sure? I said, I have to leave my job. That was toxic for me. That's not where I needed to be. I didn't want a daycare raising my son. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just enjoyed it so much. And I knew I wanted to be home. I knew I wanted to send my kids off to school on the bus. I wanted to be the one to open the door and say, be kind, and tell them I love them, and send them off on the bus and be there with my son. And, I knew I had to do it. Regardless of anything else with Epicure, I knew that was the choice I needed to make. And I learned it at conference. But so now I quit my job, and I needed to replace that income. I think I was getting paid about $27,000 a year. And I knew that's all I wanted to do was make that much, so that I knew I was doing the right thing. So I set out a plan. I'm like, I quit. So now I have to put this into motion. How am I going to do this? So because I was at conference, they had announced the next incentive trip. And I thought, you know what, if I think it's going to be way more fun for me to push myself to earn that conference than it would be just to say, okay, let's make more money. And I knew that if I, earned that conference or that not conference, that incentive trip, then if I knew that if I achieved that incentive trip, then that income would just naturally follow along. I'd be growing my team, I would be making more money. So it just was more fun to set my sights on an incentive trip. So I started doing that. I broke down the incentive trip into monthly goals to make sure I achieved it. And if I fell short one month, I just made sure I pushed a little bit harder the next month and closed some more classes and, just added more people to my team. And it was pretty darn amazing. So it took me a year to double my income that I was making as a school secretary. Now I think officially I quadrupled that income, which is pretty neat. Because when you push and you take your business seriously, then amazing things naturally will happen. When you're growing your team, you will rank advance. So it was last year I rank advanced from senior leader to executive director in a year, just from taking my business seriously. So I do have a couple of tips to share on how I've done these things. So setting office hours. This is something I did as soon as I quit my job. I thought, well, I need to, even if I'm home with my son, I still need those office hours just at this job now. So I set those office hours and I actually made sure to stick to them. That was huge. Just planting myself in a chair and setting out to do things helped, right? I made a to-do list. And one thing I learned about to-do lists is you flip it upside down and you start from the bottom. So you make your to-do list, and naturally it's like human nature to write the easiest things at the top, and those things that take courage are at the bottom. So I flip my to-do list around, and I still do that, where I'm doing those harder things first. And as my day goes on, I've got the fun things to do, the ones that aren't so hard. So that's something I've always done. Another thing that's kept me on track is I've always been aware of income. So how much money I made in this month last year, I always know that, and I try to beat it. If I beat it by 10 cents, it's usually more than that if you have that drive, right? But if I beat it by 10 cents, then I beat it. And if I didn't beat it that month, then once again, just like that incentive trip, I make sure that the next month that I've beat that remaining amount of QV. But I, of course, keep track of how many I sponsored in that month last year, what my QV was, and how many cooking classes I've closed, just to keep myself going, to keep myself motivated. So I think having that drive and being excited about what you do it just will make a difference. It'll make all the difference in your Epicure business. So I hope some of those tips helped. Thank you for listening to me ramble on. I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you.